Hello and welcome to VB WRX. My name is Waze, and today I'm going to be talking about intercoolers. Now you're probably wondering, where the hell am I? So I'm actually at my shop, Ecotech. This is where I work now, and the really nice thing about it is I actually get to use the space and a lot of the parts to make whatever videos that I want to make. This is actually something that I get asked a lot because I actually never got a top mount intercooler upgrade. I actually just went straight to the front mount. Now, there was a couple of reasons for that, and I want to just try to make this video for a lot of people who don't really know which one you're going to go towards, and both are great options. And even the stock intercooler, the top mount intercooler on the VB WRX is actually pretty damn good. Now, if I wish I had, I actually don't have a stock VB intercooler here with me. I kind of wish I had mine because I can show you the difference between an older aftermarket one, and one thing you'll notice is the thickness is about the same, but it's a little bit wider. Now, compared to the VA WRX and even some older WRXs, the stock top mount was really, really tiny, especially the VA WRX. And when you look at upgrades from Perrin, from Cobb, from ETS, from all these, the top mounts, they're so much thicker than what comes in stock. And of course, all that helps. Now, why would you get a top mount intercooler if you're needing an upgrade? Now, basically, the number one thing is bigger is better on an intercooler. That is just period across the board, whether you go top or front. But the nice thing about the top mount is it's really easy to install. It's a direct fit. You know, you actually, most of these are pretty good for up to 400 horsepower, and some even claim a little bit higher than that, maybe 450. And I'd say most people generally are probably going to be under 400 horsepower. I'd say for the most part, people are running at least an intake, possibly no jpipe. I think most people I've seen so far are running just an intake, maybe a catback, maybe a blow-off valve or something like that. J-pipes are a little bit harder, or I see less of them in the community. I tend to see more intermediate pipes, and still with ethanol, you might hit 400, but you're still at that number. So it's a great, easy option. It's something that, again, looks really cool. It's nice, it's thick, it's bigger, so you can see it. It's a little more efficient, just because, depending on the car. And VB WRX and VA WRX is a little bit of a toss-up when it comes to the efficiency because of where the turbo is located, but if you're looking at an old EJ, it's definitely a little more efficient because the turbo is a little bit higher up. Now, what sucks about the top mount is it's on top of the engine. All of that heat from the turbo, all of that heat from your engine, from pretty much everything is rising. Heat rises, right? And so where is it going? It's going in the top mount. That's kind of a disadvantage. Now, depending on where you live, it doesn't really matter that part because you're going to get heat soaked. And that's the big thing about intercoolers. With all of the temperatures that are coming out from the engine bay, you will eventually get heat soaked on the top mount. And that's one of the reasons you want to get a bigger one, so you just have more surface area to deal with. Now, hotter states, like more southern states, like if you're in Texas, you're in California, you're in Arizona, just getting any top mount upgrade over a stock is going to be a big benefit to you. Now, let's say you don't want to get a top mount and you're like, you know what, I don't want to build now, sell the top mount and buy something else later. I just want to drop a bunch of money now and have what I want. That's where you look at the front mount. Now, right away, the front mount is a statement piece. Now, for me, the reason I went with the top mount was front mount was that exact reason. I wanted Perrin was nice enough to send me one, but I had always wanted a front mount because of the race car look, right? If you think about tuner cars, you think front mount intercooler. You always see a huge front mount sticking out from behind the grill or behind the bumper, and it's a really cool thing. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people like them. And of course, now you come back to the adage of bigger is better. Obviously, this is way bigger than a top mount. Where it's located is even better. It's right in front of the car, and when you're driving the car, all that air is right there. You don't have to worry about heat soaking because the heat isn't going into the front mount. It's leaving from all that space now you have at the top. Now, there's another video I've been wanting to do with hood scoops, which is the reason why we have top mounts on Subarus, because the hood scoop is up there to draw the air in and shoot it directly at the top mount. Now, there are different types of hood scoops that aftermarket companies sell. You've got JDMuscle, you've got Aeroflow Dynamics, Import Image Racing, all these companies have their own. And I actually have had a Noble one and I've had a JDMuscle one, and the difference between them versus even what's stock is pretty staggering. I actually did a little smoke test, and I haven't gotten around to filming that because I want to perfect it before I do it. But the different material that's used for the actual holes, whether it's a grill, a plastic grill, or chicken wire or something, does affect how much air goes to your top mount. So if you're interested in that video, stick around, subscribe, because that's going to be coming very soon. Now, you don't have to worry about any of that. You don't have to worry about the hood scoop. You don't have to worry about any airflow when it comes to the front mount. It's all going to the front of the car. And again, it looks badass. Now, some other cars, depending on where the turbo is located, people have talked about turbo lag because of extra piping and whatnot. Now, that was something that was definitely a thing for EJs because of where the turbo was located. Now, when it comes to the VB and the VA, I've noticed more. I won't talk about VAs because I didn't actually have one on my VA, but I did have one on my VB. And the one thing that we noticed, yes, the RPM spool did change a little bit. I believe it was about 150 to 190 RPMs later when the turbo was kicking in. But when you're driving the car, especially in a race environment that I have done, it is not perceptible. Like, you are not going to be able to notice 150 to 190 RPM. So not an issue for us, especially with the extra piping that is being added. We already have tons of piping going to the top mount and bringing it back down. So it's not really that big of an issue. Again, this is just, it's nicer to have on drag days. It's nice to have on race days. It's nice to have even just in general, because even when I'm sitting in traffic and, you know, St. Louis is a great example. Some days it's 80, some days it's 190, sometimes it's 100 in St. Louis on the summers. I'm not heat soaking my top mount standing in traffic. And I know a lot of people don't have, what is it, like the intercooler water spray thingy that I've seen. I've actually seen somebody do that on a VB and actually put one on there. This is like a really random thing that you can do, but if you're going to like drag strip and you want to keep your intercooler cool, you don't have to keep opening the hood and spraying your intercooler. Like, the front mount is right there. So and I actually did this. I actually brought like a bottle of cold water, and I would actually just come to the front and just spray it just to keep the temperatures down, which it probably didn't need to happen. But I'd say on a drag strip, there's a bigger chance that by the time it's your turn to get in line to race, this is probably going to be already hot. So you're going to start at a higher temperature than you would with a front mount. It's just, there's a couple of things like this that really people need to think about, because not everybody needs a front mount. I would say most people don't. And to be honest, I actually don't even really need a front mount. I just think it's really, really cool. The reason I say that is if you look at the VB WRX that Subaru took to the Nürburgring 24-hour race they did this year and last year, they ran a top mount. Now, they're making about 380 horsepower, 380 to the wheel, and about 430 torque, which is very similar to what my car makes. My car makes about 385 and 424, which is so, so close. Now, and they did have a turbo upgrade. They had a couple of other upgrades in that car, but the turbo, it was FA24, and it was possibly an upgraded. I actually want to go back and see if I can post a picture of it here. They did run a top mount intercooler. They had no problems with anything. Of course, they ran that car for 24 hours, and both times they did a really great job. They made it to the end. Now, if you look at rally, they run a top mount there as well. Now there, they probably run it more so that like rocks don't hit it, or they don't have like gravel. So that's a different situation, but it's still incredibly efficient for them to run in a rally race. Almost all of them, I'd say if not all of them, actually do run a top mount. And I want to say probably most turbo cars do that, just obviously for safety reasons. Now, the other thing that people have said, if you run a front mount, you can restrict air to your cooling system. So like your radiator mainly, especially in mine. You know, the VB, if you know, on the front, there's really not that much space down there. You can cut the little grill, the grill out and make it a little bit more efficient. But as soon as you put a front mount, it pretty much covers 100% of the space. Now, you know, airflow is going to go through this and it's going to hit the radiator. But this is something to think about in extended. If you're doing time attack or if you're doing something crazy like that, make sure whatever you're putting up front isn't blocking everything, or you have an upgraded radiator, so it's not really much of an issue. Now, most of my track days, I did not see any temperature issues at all. The only issues I saw in temperature-wise was the oil cooler, or the oil, which was up to like 265, which is why I added an oil cooler. I haven't been back to the track since then. Actually, I haven't been back to the track since I got my oil cooler, which of course next year things are changing because I am going to be doing a lot more racing, so I look forward to that. So it's not that big of an issue. I think the VAs and the VBs didn't really have much of a cooling issue to begin with, like the older cars. But of course, an upgraded radiator doesn't hurt in that department. So these are just some of the things that you really have to worry about. Now, cost is a pretty big thing because you can get away, especially when they have like really good deals, you can get a top mount for like, I want to say $500–600, which is a really, really good deal, considering when you look at something like a front mount, not only are you going to have to buy the actual front mount itself, then you have to buy the extra piping, which is something that I have an issue with. I haven't talked about this yet, but my charge pipe actually, for my front mount, has actually been grinding up against a bolt, and it has almost made a hole. So that video is actually coming because Perrin is nice enough to send me a replacement tube for that so that I can replace that, and I have kind of like an oil leak. It's probably my fault, so there's a couple of things I need to figure out on that. So if you're looking at ease of use and like maintenance, now you have extra piping, you have extra couplers that you need to worry about, extra V-bands, or not V-bands, but like clamps that you have to worry about with a front mount that you don't have to worry about here. You get one charge pipe, which the car already comes with, unless you're sticking with stock, or if you're getting a aftermarket charge pipe, that's 2 pieces, and that's it. Drop it right with it, good to go. Here, you could potentially have some issues. Things can blow off, things can break, and then you're kind of stuck. So, but the pricing, extra piping, you got to buy it separate. Or if you get a kit that actually has the piping within it, it's going to be $1,200 to maybe $1,500. You know, some larger cores can be even up to $2,000. The core I have is a Perrin core, and it's 3.5 inches, and it's I think about 9.5 inches tall. And there's larger ones. ETS sells one that's about 13 inches height-wise, so that's a really big intercooler. Perrin actually has one coming out that's 13 inches, 13.5 inches, I believe, which I am actually going to be getting that upgrade maybe beginning of next year. It's just a taller, it's the same width, and this is actually a Perrin one. I don't know from what car this is, but this is pretty much what my Perrin one looks like, and it's about 13 inches, that's about this tall. So like, that's a lot of extra cooling, and in this case, it's actually going to stick out into the grill area as well from the top of the bumper. So something to look out. That's something that they're coming out with. It's just more cost and more points of failure. Now, it's obviously your responsibility to make sure everything is plugged up tight. I'll give you an example. Even here at Ecotech, we've had some people bring their cars on the dyno day, and couplers pop off if you don't have them tightened down properly, especially if you're pushing a lot of boost, which is another big advantage of something like a front mount, is you obviously can run larger amounts of boost, more boost. Obviously, physically, there's so much air that can be shoved inside this thing before it becomes inefficient. Whereas something like this, the larger, you know, the imagination is the limit. I mean, I guess you can have the biggest intercooler you want, 5 inches. I've seen some cores that are that large. So these are some of the things that you have to think about, and you have to be realistic with yourself. If you're just dailing the car and you're driving it on the weekends, you're just driving it for fun, or maybe you meet your friends for some back road drives, or even every now and then you do some drag racing or some rolls, you might totally be okay with a top mount and you don't need to spend $2,000. But if for some reason, you know, you've got a little extra cash and you love the look, and more importantly, you have a genuine need for more cool air, this is the way to go. Now, again, I always wanted a car with a front mount, and front mount screams tuner to me, and to most people it probably will. That's why I went with that. So anyway, hope this video was informative, and I will see you guys in the next one.